Hey guys, I'm back again. Gonna do something a little bit different today. But before we get into that, I'll just show you something quickly. I mentioned in a previous video related to the hair swoosh, this hair swoosh. I mentioned that I might do it in the air as well. So I did end up doing that. So I'll just show that off here. So like when you're on the ground and you turn around, it does this swoosh animation, and now it'll do the same swoosh animation but flipped vertically when you're in the air. So see, when I change directions in the air, now the hair actually has an actual transition, and it won't, as before it would simply just flip. And I was worried that there wouldn't be enough time to, there wouldn't be enough room for the transition, or I would have to like give priority to some transitions over others maybe. But overall, I'm definitely glad I added it in. I want to have as many transitions as possible. So yeah, I'm pretty happy with that, although it's not perfect. There's like a little bug where it's gonna be hard to show, but there is a little bug. In fact, the hair, the entire player will, because it's still in the early stages, I am going to actually recode the entire player again for probably like the 6th time. But it's only to help me in the future, because right now it's only like maybe 30% or maybe 20% as complicated as it's going to be. Like when I've got like all the players in and all the hair animations and all the attacks in, the player's gonna be way more complicated. And so it's not even that complicated yet, and the code's already getting too crazy. So yeah, I'm a fan of just keep doing it over until it gets good, gets clean and easy to work with. But yeah, anyway, so that's that. So yeah, the main thing I'll be talking about today is the rat mechanics. I've touched on it briefly in previous videos, but one of the unique things about this game, or what I was hoping was going to be in this game, was not only is it like a normal platformer to some degree, where you have like a player, the player has some attacks, and then you have some enemies, the enemies have some attacks, and you just kind of run around killing enemies. The unique idea I was thinking about was that there are rats roaming around the dungeon, and the player, if you like touch a rat, the rat will start following the player and basically becomes like your buddy. So right now the rat's just going like full on, one direction. I was planning, they kind of just idle around. They just kind of like walk around one direction, kind of go back one direction. They just kind of walk around like aimlessly. And then right when the player touches them, they start following the player. And then from there, there's many, like just the general idea was that they help. They help you kill enemies. They help you gather items. Maybe they even help you dig holes, like through breakable terrain. Yeah, so I was basically approaching it like a game jam, where if you don't know what a game jam is, it's where you just kind of meet up with other game developers, and you don't know what you're gonna do when you get there, and then you're given a theme. Like the theme might be like, time moving backwards, or like, opposites attract or something like this. They just give you some random theme, and then you have to come up with game like design ideas and make a game based on that theme. And it's supposed to, like, one thing you might learn doing that is that no matter what the theme is, usually there's something you can do. So if you like, you never really have the excuse like, oh, there's just nothing I can do. So yeah, and if you have like a particularly good starting theme, then that opens up a lot of doors also. So for me, I decided early on I wanted real women, like on a green screen, wearing costumes and stuff in the game, like I described earlier. I briefly described it earlier. But I also decided early on it would be cool to have animals in the game. And then since this is my first game in this kind of way, I didn't want to do anything too difficult. And I think rats are the easiest animal to capture on camera. I just want like walking, digging, eating, some very basic rat stuff. So for pretty early on, I just decided like, okay, there'll be a woman and there'll be rats and there'll be enemies. And I'll just kind of figure out how it's all going to work later. And I was just kind of banking on the fact that, I'll figure something out, And actually, I actually had an appointment with someone on Facebook who has a bunch of pet rats. I was going to go meet up with them and get the actual footage of some rats so that I could start putting them in the game. And I actually still am hoping to do that soon. It's just because of coronavirus, I'm going to like meet up with her, at a different time when there's no pandemic going on. But so yeah, it started to get to the point where like I really kind of actually need to figure out what the rats are going to do. And I was a little bit overly optimistic maybe on that I would be able to figure it out, because I've put in some serious like design sessions where, I'm not even like today, for example, I coded for about 4 hours, something unrelated to this. I was doing like some other stuff with the buttons. And then I decided it's bothering me too much that I don't know what the rats are going to do yet. So I just took off the whole rest of the day. I spent maybe like 10 hours just thinking about the rats. And I was really hoping I could figure something out that I'd be excited about. Because when you have like ideas you're excited about and you know what you're doing, that can really help with your motivation. And I already so that wasn't the only long session I put in on the rats. I've thought about them for a while. I never really could. I thought I had something going, but then I realized it wasn't as good as I thought. So anyway, I'll show you my latest ideas for the rats. And I was really hoping I could get some feedback. Yeah, like any ideas you want to pitch to me that you would be happy to see in the game, I'd be more than happy to read them. I definitely, since I only have like a few hundred subscribers at this time, I'm obviously reading all the, I'm happily reading all the comments, and any feedback I get, I really greatly appreciate. But in particular, ideas for the rats at this point in time if you have any good ideas for the rats, please let me know. That would be pretty sweet. But yeah, so there's two main ways of going about it. One would be that the rats are basically AI based, and that they kind of like, you obviously control the player. And similarly to the enemies, how you don't control the enemies, you just don't control the rats, and they kind of just do their own thing. So like, for example, since the rats are your buddies, if you get near an item, then maybe the rat just decides, okay, I'm gonna go get the item and bring it back. Or maybe if you get near an enemy, the rat just decides, okay, I'm gonna start attacking this enemy. And the rats would like go up to the enemy's feet and start like nibbling at its feet and like bouncing up and down and playing like a bite animation. So that's one idea, is that the rats kind of like automatically do things and you have some control over it because they're following you and you can predict what they'll do. But for the most part, I was thinking that you could just have them kind of automatically do things. And then the other school of thought is that you actually you tell the rats to do things. So I would say, you go attack this enemy, you go get this item, you go dig a hole over there. Because some of the tiles may be like breakable, so maybe the rat could dig through the tiles. So yeah, I've put a good amount of thought into both. I originally was going to go the automatic route, then I changed my mind. I got excited about like assigning, like micromanaging the rats route. And now I'm back to the automatic route. I don't think the micromanaging is really that great now. But yeah, so most of the ideas I'll show you today are related to, well, all of the ideas are related to
the rats being like AI based. But I'll just briefly explain why. The reason I'm like leaning toward AI based right now is because if you I already know what you want the rat, like it's obvious what the rats should do, so you don't need to tell them what to do. If I'm near an enemy, yeah, I want you to attack the enemy. Like, why should I have to tell you to attack the enemy? Or if I'm near an item, go get the item for me. Like, why do I even have to tell you? You know, in certain situations, like maybe it would make sense. Like there's multiple enemies and maybe it's strategic to attack one over the other. But in the vast majority of cases, it's a non-decision. So to have to tell them to do things is annoying. And you can combine automatic and like micromanaging them, but the logistics of it, what ends up happening is the time it takes to make the decision and assign the action, like to tell, like I was thinking of like various ways of doing the UI, but for example, you could have a hotkey like I, like for item, and then when you press I, maybe everything goes black and white and only the items are now colored, and it's like the game's essentially paused now. And then you would use the arrow keys, say left, right, and it would like move the camera over to which item you want to select, and then you press space, and then okay, the rat then knows, okay, go over to this item, pick it up, and then bring it back. Or you could do something similar with attacking enemies. Like I could say like press the attack button, then select an enemy, and then press space. And then I can tell them to go attack an enemy, and then I could also do it where it's a single rat attacking or tell all the rats to attack. But yeah, the more I've thought about it, it's too often it's a non-decision, and too often it slows down the gameplay. You're essentially pausing the game to make a decision. And if you don't pause the game, you can get attacked while you're telling the rat what to do. But so yeah, anyway, that's briefly. It's just I'm not that thrilled about assigning actions anymore. So yeah, I've put some thought into what it would be like if you have rats that automatically kind of just help you throughout the game. So I'll show you what I've been thinking about. So I just made some simple animations so that, because when I think about the game, I'm trying to imagine what it'll be like in my head, because you can make simple animations like in your imagination, but just so you can kind of vaguely see what I'm thinking about, I'll just made some quick animations. So here, I'll go over most of the rat functionality that I had in mind. So what I already explained was they'll kind of just idle around, and then when you get near them, they'll start following you. So this stickman is the player, this is an enemy, and these are rats. So like the player is moving right, the rats are just following the player right now. So yeah, the first idea is that the rats, when you're near an enemy, they'll figure out, okay, I should go attack this enemy. So I'm getting near the enemy, and then I'm bouncing up and down, which means I'm attacking, you know, the enemy. Now the rats are attacking the enemy too, right? So the rats know when I'm near the enemy, attack the enemy. Now when I move away from the enemy, they would then realize, like, okay, you know, once I get a certain distance away from the enemy, the rats then decide, okay, I'm gonna go back to following the player. Yeah, so that's basically the first idea. I'll just go through each idea first, and then I'll tell you the pros and cons of each later. So here, you know, I'm attacking the enemy. Oops. So yeah, that's the first idea. Second idea is that if there's an item nearby, because there can be like coins and potions and stuff, if the rat will go get the item and then bring it back to you. And you can also just get the item yourself. So when you kill an enemy, sometimes some items will fly out, like, you know, like Sonic or something, like the rings in Sonic. So here I've just killed the enemy, and now an item comes out. So now one of my rats detects that there's an item there, and then goes and gets it for me. So you can go and like you can pick up items yourself, but the rats, anything you can do, the rats can also do. They just kind of help you. So if a bunch of items shoot out, the rats will kind of get some of them for you, and then you get the others. Like they just kind of help you. That's the idea. Then this one's kind of interesting. If there's a dead enemy and the rats are nearby the enemy and there's nothing more important to do, they'll devour, like they'll eat the enemy like piranhas, and that'll give them HP. So normally, like the enemy will die, and then it'll just be like a body lying on the ground, and then the rats, oh, that's the wrong one. Then the rats will devour it and it'll turn into a skeleton. So the rats can like replenish some of their HP by devouring dead enemies. So they're eating the enemy, it turns into a skeleton, and then they gain some HP. Yeah, so that's one of the only things that the rats could do that the player can't do. The player can replenish their HP with potions and stuff, but the rats, all you can do to get more HP for rats is to eat dead bodies. Okay. So here's another example. This one's a little bit non-standard. The rats will actually make noises. They'll bounce up and down a little bit and go like ee, 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 ee. And it's a way of warning you about impending danger. So there'd be various situations where it can happen. So for example, I'm walking along, I run into an NPC. The NPC is saying something to me, I'm saying something back, we're having a conversation. At a certain point, the rats may pick up on his negative vibes and then start bouncing up and down, going ee, 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 ee. And then that warns the player, okay, something bad's about to happen. So sometimes that'll be like in a store, like sometimes you'll talk to an NPC and it'll seem like they're nice at first, and then later you realize they're not, and the rats kind of warn you. And then in other situations, it's like level design based, like you're about to enter a dangerous area of the level, so the rats warn you. And I might even do it where, if you've seen Mario Maker, sometimes people do like troll levels where they try to trick the player, like they use the level design in a way to mislead the player. I may actually incorporate some of that, but warn you first with the rats. But anyway, it would mainly be when you're entering a dangerous area or when you meet like a bad character. So now there's another one, digging a path. I was thinking that there could be breakable terrain, and that the rats, you can break the terrain yourself, but the rats can also break the terrain. In this example, actually, this was before I was originally actually thinking that only the rats could dig, but I quickly, this is a little bit old actually, but anyway. That's why I say version 1 here. So what it was originally going to do is when you get near, so like each of these is supposed to be like a dirt tile that's breakable, and then the rest of these are dirt tiles that aren't breakable. I was going to do, when you get near a dirt tile, it highlights it, and then you would press like the down arrow key. You'd press the arrow key in the direction where you want to dig, and then the rats would start digging. So for example, you know, if I were to press the down arrow key right now, the rats dig down, then I move left, and then I keep holding left, and it would know, okay, to dig through those walls. Yeah, so that was before I realized though, it wouldn't make any sense for the rats only to be able to dig and not the player. So really this one isn't a good example, because it would be better if the player just attacks the tiles, and then the rats, once the player attacks like a breakable tile, then the rats start attacking it too, similar to an enemy. But yeah, so those are the main things that the rats might do if I were to go forward with like this AI based rats. And here are the main pros and cons.
So in the first example, when you're attacking nearby enemies, the enemy would sometimes have attacks that only hurt the player, like a punch, because it's high up. He's not going to go punch down to the rats. And then they'd have some attacks that only hurt the rats, like stamping on the ground. Like they'd just take their foot and start stamping on the rats. And then they'd have some attacks that might hurt both the rats and the player. But I was thinking the problem with that is that the rats what's going to happen is the rats are going to swarm the enemy, and the enemy is going to be slowly losing HP because the rats are attacking it. So you could in theory just not do anything. You could just dodge, like say that the enemy's shooting stuff at you. I could just dodge their shots and wait for the rats to kill the guy. And that's kind of lame if you think about it, because like in a way it's like putting a timer on the encounter. So as long as I survive past a certain amount of time, then the guy will die unless he kills the rats. So like it's, in a way, I was just thinking like, it's something about that where the enemy's kind of constantly getting attacked no matter what, that I don't know if that's actually going to work. I'm not really sure. And then also when the enemy were to take turns, like sometimes if they were to use an attack that only affects rats, then that might also make it too easy, where like that's like a perfect opportunity to then like, you know, attack the enemy. So I was just thinking like it may become kind of like a button masher where like you just kind of plow through everything. And I don't really want it to be that way. I want it to be more tactical. But it may work, it may not work. It's just not really clear to me. And also the other issue is the player is intelligent, so the player can dodge attacks and move back and forth and stuff. But the rats just swarm the guy and start attacking the guy. So the rats are basically like, once you get near an enemy, the rats are automatically always in danger, and there's nothing you can really do to protect them. And that might, if you're trying to preserve your rats, that might be annoying that you can't like, that the rats just kind of always attack. And also the rats would only have like one type of attack, and that might be like too repetitive. But yeah, this one's kind of hard to think about. Like I can see it working and I can see it not working. Yeah, like the quicker if the rats are constantly attacking the enemy and then the enemy occasionally attacks the rats, you now have an incentive to kill the enemy quicker, which I don't know if I want that either, because it's kind of like, I kind of like the idea that you could, I don't want the player to have to worry too much about the rats, because the rats are stupid. You know, like the rats are always getting themselves into trouble kind of, so like putting a timer on it where now you have an incentive to kill the enemy quicker because the rats are so stupid. I don't know if that's actually if that's actually fun. But the upside is it may add some skill to it. It's kind of hard to say. It may be fun. It may not be fun. I might have to actually do it to find out. But also, it's the main reason I kind of like it is that it's unique. Like I can't really think of other games like that. Like there's like for example in Fallout 3, you can get like a dog, and then the dog runs and attacks enemies. It's basically the same thing, but in a 2D platformer where you have like a bunch of little helpers that go. I haven't really seen that. So the uniqueness of it makes me think it might be good. Yeah, so then for the fetching nearby items, the problem is the vast majority of the time, you can just get the item yourself. Like right here, for example, the coin's right here, the player's right here. I can just walk over and get it myself. So like the rat takes the initiative to go and get it, and then by that point I'm already halfway there, and then it's like, it's helping such a small amount that it might just be confusing.
If the coins go in multiple directions, though, and then the rat gets one and you get the other, then I guess it wouldn't be as confusing. But the issue is, like, it's so easy to collect items yourself that to have something automatically getting them for you might just kind of look silly because it's not really helping. It just might be confusing. Like, why don't I just get it myself? Like, what's the point of this, kind of? And then the other thing is, there would be some situations where only the rat can get it and you can't. So, like, the rat can move between bars, for example, whereas you need to open the bars to get through. And also the rat can go through, like, one tile gaps, but you can't. So there'd also be situations where the rat is the only one that can get it. So that you're just kind of waiting for the rat to get an item. But I'm not sure if that's fun because you're essentially just sitting there waiting. And, like, it's like I get to a bar, get to some bars, and then there's, like, an item on the other side, and then the rat goes and gets the item and brings it back to me. But it's like why not just put the item on the other side of the bars then and just let me get it myself? Because all I'm doing is walking up to the bars and waiting a bit, and then so, like, in a way it kind of slows down the game almost. And I'm also not sure from a level design point of view if having areas of the game where only the rats can access, if that's necessarily makes any sense. Like, what's the point of that, kind of? Like, so that I can sit there waiting for the rat to go get something and bring it back? Like, why? I don't see what's so great about that, really. But the thing I like about it is it reminds me of one of my favorite games, StarCraft Brood War. Not one of my favorite game, because it's like when a probe or when one of your workers mines some minerals and then brings back a chunk of minerals. Just the feeling of them getting something and then bringing it back. There's something kind of satisfying about that. And it would also look kind of similar because if a whole bunch of coins pop out, they can go get one, bring it back, go get another, bring it back. So it kind of reminds me of my favorite game, StarCraft, which I like. And it also is slightly more convenient, so it's like a little helper. The player may appreciate in certain situations that it actually is more convenient. So then, Devouring Corpses. The only issue I have is, say I kill an enemy. Now I want to move on. I just want to leave and continue on. But now the rats are sitting there eating the corpse, so I have to kind of wait a bit for them to finish. And even if it's quick, like even if they can eat it in 1 second, it's still kind of like, you're kind of waiting for somebody else, kind of like, I've now killed you and I want to move, keep going. But it's like, I have to now wait for the rats to eat the guy, kind of. It may kind of slow you down a bit. And then, there's a bunch of situations where the rats may slow you down. So when you add them all together, even though in all of them it doesn't slow you down that much, it may be a little bit annoying when it's like, oh God, I gotta wait for the rats again, kind of. And it may, I guess it might be confusing because that's the one thing the rats can do that you can't. But it may also be confusing, I would have to prioritize either getting items first or eating the corpse first. And it may also confuse the player, there's an item sitting there, but instead of the rat's eating a dead body and then getting the item, maybe the player wants the rat to get the item first or something, but I don't know. But yeah, the upside is I think that would look really cool. It would be unique. It would be cool because it would be from a design point of view kind of nice because now the rats can replenish HP. And I don't like the idea of using your items on your rats. And it also just would help the theme because I'm going for a dark kind of creepy theme. So yeah, that would be kind of cool. That's probably my favorite thing about the rats so far that I've thought of. Yeah, the making noises when you get near an enemy, I think that's pretty interesting. It's not really a gameplay thing. It's more of an atmospheric thing. although it does warn you, it can help you. It's more psychologically to kind of make it feel cool. I don't know how to like, just like there something about that the rats would warn you. I feel would be interesting. It's like it's kind of like there'd be situations where, you know, you're really injured, and then, you know, you got to kill an enemy, and then the rats really help you out, and then you're like, oh, good thing I had those rats, you know, they're my little helpers. Or maybe like one of the rats kind of sacrifices itself to kill an enemy for you, and you're like, oh, thanks, man. Or like, you know, you're like in a hurry and you can't, but you don't have time to get all the items, but then one of the rats gets an important item and brings it back to you, like so that you can escape in time. And then you're like, oh, good thing I had that rat. Or like, you know, the rat, you're about to get into like a dangerous situation, and then the rats kind of warn you, and then because you had that little warning, you react a little bit better, and then you're like, oh, good. So like the feeling of like the rats being your bro and helping you out, maybe kind of a cool feeling, because now it's like you're not on your own anymore. You got someone to kind of help you along the way. And more so just the feeling of like, if a rat were to sacrifice itself for you, I feel like that would be kind of cool. So yeah, I think the rats like warning you with their little ee noises, I think would be pretty cool. And then the digging, so yeah, let me just see what I wrote. Yeah, be bad. Oh yeah, the one thing is I'm not planning on having boss battles. I never really liked boss battles. I think of them kind of like water levels, where it's not really most of the game is one way, and then all of a sudden you have a boss battle which is like different, and it's like not really what the game's all about, kind of. It's also in this case because I'm like already, so the project's already too ambitious. I don't really want to add in boss battles, which would be like super ambitious. But really the main reason I'm not having boss battles is I'm just not a fan of it. But the player may be expecting a boss battle when the rats start doing that. So the fact that I'm not doing boss battles, it doesn't really work well with that. But the good aspect is it helps with the atmosphere. It looks cool, and it actually does help with the level design, because I can now, you know, it's a way of warning the player, which is kind of nice sometimes. And then with the digging, this idea for the digging isn't that great. But if you think like if the player were to attack a tile, that's the way that the rats know, okay, I should attack that tile too. And also the player could like attack multiple tiles at a time with like a slash. So like that would be a way of clearing multiple bricks at a time. Whereas in this situation, I'm clearing them one at a time, which looks kind of silly. But yeah, I think the breakable terrain has some pros and cons. Like it's well, yeah, if only the rats can break terrain, that's just bad. I'm not going to do that. I'm just not even consider that anymore. But yeah, part of the problem with breakable terrain is it's essentially another type of door. Like in this situation, it's effectively just a door. And I already gonna have keys and doors, and I already have like levers and bars. So now this is just a third type of door, and it's like an overly tedious type of door also. And then in terms of like how I would break the tiles below you, I would need some way of the player attacking down. But if the player's crouching and attacking, I don't really want them to be attacking down. I want them to be attacking forward a bit. So it may be a little bit awkward, whatever attack I would have to figure out, so that it would make sense that it's damaging the tiles below you. And yeah, like I was originally thinking like, oh, you could make like little paths, and like it could be like an ant farm kind of, where you like digging little paths. But the more I thought about it, there's really very little strategy that I could think of that it would really affect. It wouldn't really be like that, I don't think. It would be more just like a door. But I'm not sure about that. I'd have to think about it more. Like there's definitely situations where you could be creative with how you dig that would help you later. Like maybe you dig like a kind of like a staircase so that you could jump out later. Whereas if you dig straight down, you would just fall in and then you wouldn't be able to jump out. Or it wouldn't be as easy. But yeah, the digging, I definitely want to have breakable tiles. But yeah, the whole digging like intricate paths, I'm not so sure about. Might look cool, it might be strategic in some situations, but it's just like an overly complicated door. And yeah, like also it might be if I don't want you to start digging just because you held the down arrow key, because that's the duck thing. So that might be an issue too. But yeah, I already described this. Yeah, so anyway, in general, if I were to do the rats this way, they'd essentially be kind of like coins in Super Mario Brothers. Because the coins don't really do anything. They just help you a little bit. You could go the entire game, you could beat Super Mario Brothers without getting any coins, and it would be fine. You just wouldn't have as many one-ups. So it would be kind of like, and then also the coins, sometimes they're placed in a way to push you in a certain direction, to show you like, hey, there's something over here. So the rats would actually be very similar to that, where they just do the same thing the player does. They just help you a bit, but you don't necessarily need them. So like it wouldn't be like, it would be kind of like the coins where it just helps you a bit. And then also I could use the rats to show, like if there's a bunch of rats over somewhere, that's going to make you want to go over there. And then, so it would be a way of like showing the player where to go. But yeah, I was thinking it's kind of just like a cooler version of coins, except it might be too complicated to help you so little. I don't know if it's necessarily going to help you that little, but it might just be too complicated for something that's essentially just a coin. Although it's not just a coin. They do help you, but like sometimes the rats could save your they could save your behind, but in general, yeah. So anyway, that's just a thought. I also thought like one good thing is if you can do everything the rats can do and they kind of just follow your lead, that would be intuitive and it would be good for new players, because you don't have to think, like it wouldn't be like micromanaging the rats where you have to like press a bunch of keys and select a bunch of stuff. So like it would be kind of nice that it's so intuitive. But yeah, then there's the issue that there's a whole bunch of situations where they might slow you down. Like you're waiting for them to get items, you're waiting for them to finish eating an enemy. If you're like attacking an enemy and then you decide to run away, they're going to continue attacking for a bit and then start following you. And now they're lagging behind a bit. So you may be tempted to slow down to let them catch up. So like there'd be a whole bunch of situations maybe where the rats are like jamming you up, like slowing you down. And I don't want that necessarily. But also, the way I'm planning this game is it's not just left to right. You're going to be changing direction a lot, like going all over the place. And it's going to be, some of the maps are going to be vertically, some of them will be more horizontal. So you're not just going to like run right like the whole level like you do in Mario. So it wouldn't be as big of a deal as it would be in a game like Mario, because the rats would really fall behind. I don't think they would necessarily, it may be that they wouldn't slow you down that much. And also, I was thinking it may be like StarCraft, where in StarCraft, the artificial intelligence and the pathfinding is like flawed. But so it requires extra micromanagement to like get the enemy, to get them to kind of do what you want. But one thing, it's like a next level game design thing that StarCraft got right, which is sometimes like the flaws are what make it good. So I was thinking it may turn out that if the rats are kind of stupid, that's actually better than if they're smart. Like if sometimes the rat doesn't follow you right, like if I'm on like a moving platform and I jump, and then the rat lags behind a bit and then it also jumps, but it doesn't like reach the platform in time, and then it dies. Like it may be kind of fun how sometimes the rats are stupid and they do stupid things, but if you're really good, you know, maybe I'd slow down a bit and then let them catch up a bit and then jump. So, yeah. Yeah, I was thinking it may be that it doesn't affect the gameplay enough. Like if the rats just copy everything you do, it doesn't. It's just like, in a way, it's not even an original idea anymore because it's just like an extension of the player. It's not like fundamentally changing the gameplay really. So I'd prefer it, like, in a way it's like an aesthetic thing where it would look cool to have rats kind of running around helping you. But ideally I would want something that both looks cool and actually is a gameplay, something that affects the gameplay. Whereas this would be more like minimal. It would be like medium affecting. Like it wouldn't really, like the rats just kind of copy what you do. So it's, ideally I'd want something a little bit more interesting than that. But yeah. And then I was starting to think like, oh shoot, like maybe I'm not coming up with enough good ideas for this. Maybe I should just make the rats enemies instead. So like maybe, you know, that would be a whole different ball game. And then I was also thinking, you know, maybe I'll just get rid of the rats and not even have any rats in the game, because some of these, like if this is the best I can do with the ideas, I'm not sure if it's good enough. And then I was also thinking maybe they're just purely for aesthetics. So like the rats just kind of walk around, but they don't actually do anything. So anyway, you know, I have a bunch of options right now. I can go the route of micromanaging rats, which I think is probably the worst option. I can go the route of automatic, like AI type rats, which right now I'm leaning toward. I can go with completely removing the rats and just not having any, and it's just the player and the enemies. Or I can do, the rats are there, but they don't actually do anything. They're just like, they're basically just scenery. So right now, I can't really afford to, I've already kind of racked my brain enough about it, so I'm gonna maybe take a break from the rats. But right now, my plan is to hopefully make it work where it's like an AI-based rat system. And it may be that I just kind of go for it and see if, because you never really know if it'll work until you do it. So I may just do it and see if it's fun. But it's also a ridiculous amount of, like, if I were to do it and then it's not fun, I just wasted a bunch of time kind of. So I'm in a tricky spot right now. If I could come up with an idea that I really was excited about that didn't, like right now I have like a bunch of pros and cons, but there's a few too many cons, it feels like. If I was more excited about the idea, that would definitely help me get in hours, which would be pretty sweet. Like the more, like I have discipline, I could work when I don't want to work, but I prefer to actually want to work. So like the motivation, it would definitely help with the motivation. Although I am quite motivated right now. But yeah, if you have any ideas for the rats, definitely let me know. If I come up with any groundbreaking ideas, I'll definitely mention them. But I've thought about it enough at this point that this may be kind of as good as it gets as far as what I can do. Although that's not really in the spirit of what I was saying earlier with game jams, where you can kind of like make a game out of anything. In this case, you know, I don't know if I can get something better than this. It may be that this is good enough though, and that if I were to just do it, I'd see that it actually is fun. But yeah, so that's the situation I'm in. And I could actually talk about this a lot longer, but I'm sure this has already been going on for a while. And it's 5 a.m., so yeah, I should probably go to bed. But anyway, I think I'm probably going to focus more on the player
from now on. I'm gonna put everything else on hold, get more of the player done, and maybe some of the enemies, get some of the real game going, and then hopefully by that point I've got more of the rats figured out, and then I get started on the actual rat programming and stuff. But yeah. Anyway, thanks for watching. Much thanks if you have any ideas, and see you later.